not people of this country and we're under attack. They banning us, they cancel us for speaking the facts. If you man enough, come stand with us, take USA back. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American flags. American flags. American flags. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is American.
What's going on, Patriots? We're going to do something a little special today, something we don't normally do. And I think it's the first time that we've ever done this ourselves with Maurice and myself. That's right, isn't it? We've never done one of these reaction videos. And we're going to have Frank Blackout from Native American Guardians Association reacting to a Tom MacDonald song. This ought to be interesting. Have you ever heard of Tom MacDonald, Frank?
No, I have not.
Really? Oh,
this is going to be fun.
He's a little bit out of your genre. So,
right up
really
your alley.
quick. Yeah, he'll be right up your alley as far as like what he says and everything. But really quick, Frank, who are you?
Well, Frank Blackcloud. I am a board member for NAGA, which is Native American Guardian Association. Pardon me. Try to get all that out in one breath, but I'm also a founding member of CORE. We fought to keep the fighting Sioux here at UND. Unfortunately, that was a losing battle, but we still live to fight on.
There you go. There you go. We got a lot of other fights in front of us, just like that one. So it's just practice for the big fight. So I got this thing muted and started playing on its own. So let's go ahead and get into this. Go ahead.
Tom MacDonald is a bit of a different character. So if you just look at him, you would assume that he's, of the gangster culture or kind of a rebel outcast. But what's weird is that somebody like Tom MacDonald and me, like our values have kind of in a weird way, like aligned, because in years past, being a rebel, like when I was growing up, it was almost like the hippie movement and the punk rock. It was anti-government, anti-establishment, Rage Against the Machine, all that. Well, now it almost seems punk to get married, have kids, buy a home. And, to be a rebel against the system now is to like be religious and love your wife and stay with your wife and have a bunch of kids. Like that's anti-establishment now, which is weird. But I think you'll be surprised that, Tom MacDonald's a rapper. So he seems like, this is kind of a genre that I haven't been too big of a fan of because of the way that the lyrics, or rather the culture, has kind of went towards, it started in the 90s with like Eminem and did we lose him?
No.
Oh, well,
he can still hear you. Keep going.
It started in the 90s with like NWA, Eminem, and that kind of whole shift of the rap culture went down kind of a bad road. Like it wasn't as bad back then, but now it's become all about gangster culture, shooting up the block, protecting your block or whatever it is. And as far as women go, gangster culture is kind of terrible towards them. So
yeah, it's one of those things where it's actually a lot worse than what most people assume. There was a C. Dolores Tucker used to be a lady that was in the background fighting against, the lyrics, and basically she was trying to save the culture. And what they were trying to do constantly was tie the culture of, the black community to gangster rap, et cetera, et cetera. And she was like, essentially, there's a whole nother side to this thing. And this is not just, this is antithetical. This is not what, black culture is about. We have people that are conservative. We have people that are religious. We have people who think the sanctity of life is above getting any type of like abortions, things like this. So, what she was talking about was the fact that the culture glorifies shooting each other up, selling drugs, things like that. And she was speaking against it. the funny thing about it is, here's the reason Tom gets a whole bunch of hate is because he says it and he's white, and he says it from a white point of view. It's just completely hilarious, really. But let's go ahead and jump into it. So this is called The Machine by Tom MacDonald. You ready, Frank?
Yep,
No,
let's give it
yeah.
a shot.
There we go. There we go.
I am not Republican, I am not a liberal. Why the hell can't I just be American without getting political? The system gon' suppress us all, they don't care about the cost. How's this a democracy when we got communists in charge? Cancel culture.
Right there. I'm just going to stop. What do you think about that?
Wow, that is not what I expected.
Exactly why I said this is going to be fun.
He speaks like me.
Yeah, and I mean, he's really got his thumb on the, what's it called, the zeitgeist of the culture right now. Basically, to where he kind of sees that the two parties, he says, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a liberal. Why the hell can't I just be American without getting political? And because nowadays, if you wave the American flag, people assume that you're far right. It seems insane that the greatest country mankind has ever created, the most inclusive, the most diverse, the greatest country mankind has ever created. If you wave that flag, you are now considered right wing and against democracy.
Yep. The Patriots are now the Nazis, and the Nazis are now the freedom fighters. Yeah. Freedom now means anarchy. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Sick world we're living in.
It is. Let's continue listening to what he's got to say. I'm going to back it up just a second so we don't miss it.
All they don't care about the cost. How's this a democracy when we got communists in charge? Cancel culture Nazis, all they're missing is the swastikas. Honestly, this is a psychological holocaust. Pumping propaganda through the screen and straight into your brain. You ain't on a plantation, but you definitely still a slave. Race theory is indoctrinating children. Tell blacks disadvantage, tell whites they got white privilege. What a brilliant way to reinforce division. If whites believe they have it easy, they will never help you fight the system. And now they burning books in untraditional ways. They just traded newspapers for the digital age. Now
Okay, he said something incredible right there. He said, if whites believe they have it easy, they will never help you fight the system. This is actually one of the things that I have been talking about for a while. And the fact that it's election year, that they're going to start ramping up the white guilt again, because that's a pattern that I've noticed, is that they really want white people to feel as guilty as possible so that they feel so much shame that they don't want to partake in fighting against the system, because they believe that they get this thought in their head that they're part of the problem of this country. And so if they voice up and actually speak against it, then
It's like suicide.
Yeah. And I mean, he nailed that one.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot in there. There was an eclectic bunch of different thoughts.
Yeah.
Anyone you could have picked up on, but the idea that that we're out here being manipulated by the media and whatever's on people's timelines or feeds, and we're automatically drawn to taking this side or that side based on their new version of what is liberal, when it's really not. Liberal was always about freedom of speech. It was always about judging someone based on the content of their character and not the color of their skin or their nation of origin or female or male or whatever the case may be. It was just based on you. And now I've had plenty of conversations with people who in people of other races. I've even had this conversation with, and they like to say, well, I'm a black man first. I had someone actually tell me that. And I was like, I don't understand. Why would you want to be seen as a black man before anyone sees you for who you really are? Because I mean, if you disconnect me from my skin, am I any different? And then when you corner them, essentially, this is what happened. I was told, yeah, we need to talk about something else. Well, that's what happens constantly. You didn't have an answer for what I was saying. And now the easiest thing to do would be not to talk about it. You ever come across any of this kind of stuff, Frank? CRT or any of it? I think he's trying to, Frank, you hear us okay up there? Frank, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So what do you think about CRT?
Oh, geez, critical race theory, that needs to go away. All they're doing is polluting the minds of our children. That's all they're doing. There's nothing critical about race except for what they're trying to manipulate our children with. That's the only critical thing. We need to stop it.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree.
Definitely.
And one of the parts he said, tell the blacks they're disadvantaged, tell the whites they got white privilege. I think the comedian Theo Vaughn said this best, where he kind of goes through.
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
When he grows up, and he says there was no diversity in my neighborhood. There was poor blacks and there was poor whites. And he goes through and explains that, one of the black kids had come up to him and said, look at what you guys did to us. And he's like, what do you think? I just took all your stuff and don't have it and moved in right next door. It's like, yeah, I mean, people of all colors are going through hardship right now, and especially, the middle and lower class who are slowly being squeezed lower and lower together.
Yeah.
I mean, the lower class isn't coming up at all, but the middle class is just it's getting pushed and forced back down. So
the wealth difference, the chasm is growing larger and larger and larger as the people with more money, get more money, while the people with none get even less.
And they're printing an insane amount of money, devaluing our dollar. So even if we do get a little bit more money, and like the amount of money that I make now, if 10 years ago, it would have made a huge difference, and I would have been able to afford a bigger house. And I mean, if the rates would have stayed the same, I would have been able to do a whole lot more. But now we're spending 2 or 3 times more on groceries alone. So
if I could just go back 3 years with the amount of money that I have, I would not want for anything right now. And I'm just being legit. I mean, I make a very good living. And even though I make a very good living, I feel like I am making the same amount of money that I did 10 years ago while striving to get here. And now that I'm here, it's no different than when I was there, because it's just the worth of the dollars going down the tubes when he prints just money hand over fist. And that's why a lot of us believe the things that were going on in this country are not out of ignorance. It's intentional, right? Nothing gets this messed up by accident, right? They're doing this intentionally. Let's continue. Listen to what he says.
The facts can be deleted with no physical flames. They just change the information and the truth gets erased. For the digital,
I gotta go back.
Burning books in untraditional ways. They just traded newspapers for the digital age. Now the facts can be deleted with no physical flames. They just change the information and the truth gets erased.
That is so true. Can you imagine that? So we all think that we're going back and we're looking on news websites and things like that to do research and whatnot. What if, and I'm just hypothetically speaking, what if they go back and change what the article originally said? You don't have any physical proof, right? It's all digital. So if they just change the digital record retroactively, when you go and you look it up, you're not going to see the truth anymore. They
do that all the time. I believe it's called ghost editing. Because they're supposed to update at the bottom. They're supposed to say last edited on this date. But there's certain ways that you can counteract that.
But you can manipulate metadata.
It is so incredibly tedious. They can also, so if they ghost edit and they don't actually say that they edited on this date, right? You can go back on I believe it's called the
Wayback Machine. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can actually see the original article. But I mean, are you supposed to do that with every single article? That it's not practical. So, I mean, he's absolutely right. They're not burning books in tradition now. They're just distorting the truth, and they not only that, they overwhelm you with information so that almost anybody can argue any point, because every side has so much information that, when you get into like a Twitter beef or something, somebody can come up and just say, oh, well, have you seen this and this and this? And you're like, well, no. And a lot of it's bunk, or a lot of it's just, complete propaganda nonsense but there's just so much information that, I mean, I want to quote Bill Burr here now, another comedian, where he said, you can just go to imright.com and spout off, all these fake stats or whatever it is. So it's a combination of overwhelming people with information and ghost editing articles that when you go back, like if you have a bunch of bookmarks and you go back, they might change a couple words, and then you're just like, that I guess it didn't make the point that I thought it made. And then, and then you're confused. So,
yeah, and they have complete control over it. So here we go.
They keep screaming to wake up, but they're all woke, not awake. We know the system has failed us and all the media's fake. I swear the government hates us, having opinions is dangerous. The system built to enslave us only works if we're afraid. I am not Republican, I am not a liberal. Progressive and traditional are hitmen hired to kill the individual. They label people red or blue, divide us, they don't ever help. They want you thinking.
He said conservative or liberal is like a hitman to kill the individual. So we're not thinking for ourselves anymore. Once we become a part of whatever right left paradigm that we're in, we assume that we automatically have to adopt all of their talking points, all of their points of view, as if you can never differ with the people with whom you side. Right? We see this a lot on the left. I don't think we see it as much on the right. And I'm not just being biased, but I can point to several examples where people on the right have broken with their own ranks. We just saw Matt Gaetz throw Kevin McCarthy out of the speakership. We know Trump goes after people regardless of what side of the aisle they're on. The same with Boebert, the same with MTG, and many other politicians. But yes, there is that other faction that doesn't, and they just pretend to be on opposite sides when in fact that they're the best of friends. But yes, this is something we see all the time, right? I mean,
there's a old Indian saying, you're not left, the left wing and they belong to the same bird.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, that's a really old saying. And I mean, as far as our political sphere goes these days, it gets complicated because you do want unity, sides to work with each other, but the problem is that our representatives behind the scenes, while putting on a show for the people, like they're fighting against each other, right? But they have this agenda behind the scenes that actually screws us over.
Yeah.
So that's the big problem, is that what they say and what they do are two completely different things. So yeah, it would be good if the uniparty was a party to, like, for the people. That would actually be a good thing, but they're not. It's like they're uniparty behind the scenes to screw over the American people. That's the
But just imagine
part.
this: if you had a specific agenda that you wanted, X plus Y equals whatever, right? And this is what they do. So if you want X plus Y equals everyone to feel this way, if you know what you want the end result to be, and you control the media, all the media has to do is look through an infinite amount of probable stories that they can manipulate and present to you to make you feel exactly the way they want you to feel about any given issue, depending on what they tell you and how they tell it to you. This is what the media does to manipulate people on one side or the other. I've heard plenty of people on the left talk about things when it's to do with Trump, and they present facts, but then they leave a lot of gaps in their facts. And then with those gaps, they try to tell you what the outcome of those facts are, while not taking everything into consideration. And then, when you can't call them liars, but what they've done is they've omitted enough other facts to where their assumptions are completely just that. They're assumptions. They're not based in reality. But Anderson Cooper presents the news differently than Sean Hannity, and so on and so forth. And some of these guys are just not out there to further the cause of the American people. They're out there to get ratings and manipulate folks. And that's the reality. Because
the ratings line their pockets, and it's all greed. It's all driven by money. It's like we're able to be bought by Soros and anybody that's got a bigger wallet than the next guy. It all depends on who has the money, because that's the darn truth. Whoever has the money controls the power.
Yeah. But let me ask you, at some point, isn't the money not enough because you're losing your country? At some point, don't you think that those in the media would wake up and see, it doesn't matter if I have $1 million?
Not really. In my opinion, that's a utopia for them, to have free reign to say and do whatever they want and get paid to do it. They don't care about the destruction of the country.
Or rather, they're trying to you know, as the boat sinks, they're trying to take everything they can for themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they kind of see an end or whatever plan that they have to kind of that they see this country going. They're trying to gain as much wealth as they possibly can while not letting anybody know. And I don't know, it just kind of seems like they're either accelerating or you know, maybe it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where they think that our country's going to end, so instead of doing everything in their power to save our country, they're just actively ruining it because they think it's going to go down. So, you know, they're doing everything in their power to kind of make that happen. And I think that's the unfortunate part.
Yep, they want to accelerate it.
Yep. Hey, Eddie, you're back. There's two of you.
There it is. Yeah, there was two of me for a second. It happens when I go live sometimes. For some reason, when I go live, what'll happen is in the background, I will start getting nailed. I know where we were, but I'll start getting nailed with traffic from unknown sources. It's weird. I just turned on my VPN so that it can't happen again.
Oh, good.
So yeah, it's weird. Not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I see the traffic because the monitoring software that I run shows me when I go live, I just start getting nailed from these outside sources. All right, so
good.
Let's go ahead and continue here.
You thinking left or right, so you ain't thinking for yourself. Go ahead and vote, because both the parties are the same side. Two teams, one coach, controlled by the same guys, left wing. Right.
Now he's talking about the uniparty there, but that I disagree with his statement as a blanket statement. I believe that what he says exists, but we just talked about it. That's party. But to say there is no different two sides is a fallacy. That is a huge fallacy. And it used to be a lot less noticeable, but I believe now what we're looking at is more an issue of good versus evil, and those on one side pretending to be good being evil, and a very small amount of them actually being good and fighting for what's right.
Well, what he's kind of expressing right now is like the black pill. He's basically saying that there's no hope in the system, which you know, kind of tough to say, but yeah, he's saying that there's no hope in the system and that everybody is being controlled by the globalist elites. At least that's what
and that's where I break with him. When the blanket statement is the only disagreement that I have with that.
There has to be a fighting force, and that's what we're trying to change. I mean, I generally like Tom MacDonald's message, but that particular message is like, well, you know, we have to do something to change it. So, well, maybe he fixes it in the rest of the song. Keep going.
Side, two teams, one coach, controlled by the same guy. Left wing, right wing, both help the same bird fly, brainwashing everybody at the same time. The internet was once a...
All right, I had to stop it because he just used your analogy. He said right wing and left wing. They both make the bird fly. There it is.
Same bird fly, brainwashing everybody at the same time. The internet was once a place that we could get our facts from. Now it's been monopolized. It's Google or it's Amazon. Who fact checking the fact?
There it is. There it is. And I know he's going to say who's fact checking the fact checkers. Let him finish his statement. That
been monopolized. It's Google or it's Amazon. Who fact checking the fact checkers? I can answer that one. The people who control the narratives through the platforms. Let me break.
There it is. Remember what happened? Parler got deplatformed. They were on AWS, or for those of you who don't know, that's Amazon's platform that people use to get to the internet. And they were deplatformed, meaning like the people that their registrar, the people that they bought their .com address and all that from, basically just left and said, we're no longer doing business with you, based on nothing, because it was based on a rumor. But he's right. Right now, if we start talking in terms of election irregularities or transgender issues or any of those things, there are platforms that we're streaming to right now that would likely give us a strike for even bringing those things up. They're controlling the narrative, they're controlling the algorithm, and they're only letting certain messages rise while suppressing others. Look what they did. 17% of the people polled after the election said they would have voted a different way. if
Mhm.
if
If
they
knew
would have
about
known that
the-
the lab trap was true. Yeah, which would have
Yep.
just that percentage alone would have swung the election back to Trump. Now that's a fact.
Well,
We
and
know the
not only
percentages of both.
not only that. So when he says they use or hold on, where does he say it? I just scrolled down, but basically it's who control. He was saying that whoever controls the platforms controls what you see, and we
Yep.
know for a fact that the government was working with Twitter, with Facebook, with all these giant platforms to censor information that the state didn't like. That's why Elon Musk buying Twitter was so. I mean, it could change the outcome of the next election. Just the fact that it's not state-run media anymore, because that's what Twitter was, and that's what Facebook was. That's what Instagram was. Is that any message that wasn't approved by the state, by the deep state, not even like pro-Trump, right? Because Trump was the commander-in-chief at the time, but there were still actors within the government that were going without Trump's knowledge and without the ruling party's knowledge, censoring all of this information so that Google, Meta, and Twitter could all censor all of this information and keep that from the people. And what they would do is they would use outrage headlines. They would use rage bait to piss everybody off that Trump is the evil dictator and he's the worst thing to ever happen to this country ever. And he's going to end the world. Bullshit like that they just over and over and over again, they would just shove it in everybody's face like 6 times a day because they controlled the narrative. So it was never about truth. It was about their agenda, and it was about the deep state's agenda that they wanted to get. And you know what? It worked in 2020. That's why Biden is in office right now, because like you said, if people would have known that the laptop was real, they would have changed their vote. Well, you know what? If you were not passively just absorbing news and you were actively seeking for the truth, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. They definitely do that quite a bit, where the people that just take the news that's fed to them and then regurgitate the headlines as if it's their own opinion and a fact, because it must be true because the people on the news said it's true. So it must be true because I heard it on the news. And it happens all too often. People really don't understand that there are things said on the news quite often that are always wrong. Like a lot, a lot. It's amazing.
A friend of mine
Go
thought that too. He honestly thought that what the news was true. And so I found something, I think it was on TikTok, in fact, where they started off with an anchorman and anchor woman saying, they started saying something, and then they moved to the next one from ABC, and then that CBS and NBC, and then before you know it, they had the whole entire screen full of anchormen and anchor women saying the exact same thing. And I sent it to him, and he wrote me back. He says, "My God, you're right." I said, "Yes, of course I'm right. They're lying to us about everything."
Yeah, that is what we call the Mockingbird media. And if you remember in 1960, when Operation Mockingbird was found to be in effect and they got busted using it, they said they cut it, like they ended the program. But in fact, they didn't end the program. And there are a lot of people in media today that used to be working for the CIA before they came to do the media. In fact, Alexa, did Anderson Cooper work for the CIA?
Anderson Cooper is employed by ABC News from 1990 to 2000, CNN since 2001, and Channel 1 News from 1990 to 1995.
Alexa, did Anderson Cooper work for the CIA?
Anderson Cooper is employed by ABC News.
Oh, wow, they changed this. It used to tell you. It used to tell you. Alexa, shut up. Yeah, it used to tell you. I used to use that example all the time. But yes, Anderson Cooper was employed by the CIA prior to becoming an anchor at CNN. And the fact that they went the extra mile to change it on here to make it say something specific just kind of dials in exactly what I'm saying. I mean, that proves my point. It doesn't disprove it. So
they're controlling the entire narrative.
There we go.
This down for you, simple as I can, Kate. They use social conditioning to put you in the rat race. It doesn't matter if you're first or third or if you're last place. You're still a rat, and they're the cats who kill you so you can't escape. They keep screaming to wake up, but they're all woke, not awake.
Yeah, really
We
bad
know the
visual.
system has failed us, and all the media.
Sorry.
The video itself is like super low quality. Can you like up the resolution on it?
It's all the way up at your connection.
It's my
perfect on
connection?
this side. Yeah, it's perfect.
Oh,
on this
okay. Well,
side.
that's good. All right. I can't see
It-
it.
it look-
Like I can't see it at all.
Has failed us, and all the media's fake. I swear the government hates us. Having opinions is dangerous. The system built to enslave us only works if we're afraid. I am not Republican, I am not a liberal. I am just a man who knows they're scared of a nation that's thinking critical. They kill us or they lock us up for nothing like we're criminals. Divide us cause they know that unified we are invincible. Questioning the government's agenda is controversial, but promoting guns and liquor in our music is commercial. They're confusing us for pronouns they made up to make us triggered. You can call me what you want, but just don't call me late for dinner. School teaches you to learn and never teaches you to think. So you absorb misinformation, then you practice what they preach. You ain't free, can't you see that's how they want you to act? That's called conforming to the norm, you don't need freedom for that. I'm not Republican or liberal or left-wing or right-leaning. I took the red pills because that's who's fighting for my freedoms, and you don't.
There it is.
There
He
it is
took the
right
red
there.
pill because that's who's actually fighting for his freedom. And it's true. I mean, who was the first party to come out and say masks were trash? It was useless. Who were the first ones to come out and actually question anything to do with the vaccine or just want to have the conversation in general? All these conversations are always started from people on the right. And you would think it would be just the opposite based on yesteryear. The left used to be the ones that were raging against the machine, and now they are the machine. They are the machine. And just to have the conversation now it's nuts that we can't even talk about it.
See, but the left has always been the machine, always.
Mhm.
Jim Crow. I mean, look back. It goes back into the 1800s. They've always been the machine.
Every
they were
civil
here
rights
before
act ever done was committed by the right. Every single civil rights act, every racial legislation done has always been the Republicans from day one.
Yep.
From day one.
Yep. The Democrats have always been the machine. They've always been even though they put up this facade that they were for the people. No, they never have been. They've always been by themselves and for themselves.
Yep.
He said something kind of profound here. Well, I mean, he said a lot of things profound, but this one in particular, he said, so you absorb misinformation, then you practice what they preach.
Mhm.
This is one, I mean, people don't understand that when you do something and you say, okay, I'm just gonna bend a little bit. I'm just gonna fold this. I'll tell this little white lie, or I'm not confident in actually saying this, but I'll say it anyway because that's what they told me to say. That's the right thing, right? The problem is that you develop habits. And one of the things I learned from Jordan Peterson is on habit building and the way that you build neurological connections. And I went into like a deep dive into this because it was fascinating to me. Is that when
30 days.
When you do certain things, you will literally develop neurological pathways that create patterns, and that creates habits. That's how you create habits. That's why when you quit smoke, like if you smoke cigarettes, right, and you quit smoking cigarettes, the nicotine addiction only lasts 2 weeks and then it's completely out of your system. But the addiction itself lasts way longer than that because of all of the habits that you've developed. When you step into your car and then you got to smoke, well, you're at work, now you got to smoke. You're with these certain friends, well, now you got to smoke again. All those habits that you developed will actually affect you way later on. And so when he says you absorb misinformation and then you practice what they preach, when you're absorbing this and you're taking that information in, you're not acting it out, but when you get the chance to, and then that's why so many people have these knee-jerk reactions when they hear a certain word that'll trigger them. And then it's almost like I mean, I get this all the time when I'm controversial on Twitter somewhat, right? Is I'll get the same responses in slight variations But if I say a key word, I know exactly what response I'm going to get. Like I can go through it and just like I know exactly what you're going to say because I know their side, right? I know that pathway that they want to go down, and it happens so often that it makes me think that it's that mass formation psychosis that they talk about all the time. So
Yeah,
but
mass
I
hysteria.
really liked. Yeah, I really liked what he said there, and you know, you practice what they preach. I mean that. Yep, that's true.
And that can be taken a lot of ways too. Imagine this, right? You're telling your don't hang out with those people. Well, what I don't do, what they listen to, I don't listen to. I'm not into. Well,
Oh,
do
yeah.
you think you can swim in water and not get wet? You know, what you're around, what you decide to take in your mind, and what you surround yourself with, it has an effect on you. It has a profound effect on you. So I'm gonna back it up just a
Yeah,
second.
You are who your friends are.
Good. Exactly.
Cause that's who's fighting for my freedoms, and you don't need to choose to be accepted. They both teams, evil runs the world now like hell ain't got no vacancy. They keep screaming to wake up, but they're all woke, not awake. We know the system has failed us, and all the media is fake. I swear the government hates us, having opinions dangerous. The system built to enslave us only works if we're afraid.
Man,
He nailed it again.
This guy is the definition of the American dream. I'll always say that because you got to understand his rap career wasn't gotten on some major label or something. He got with his girlfriend who makes all the videos. He writes all of his own songs. He's produced himself. He does all of his, you know, they send all their own merchandise out. They do all this stuff, you know, on their own. And they do it on their own. Yeah. And he's not with any label whatsoever. They all try to sign him and he's like, no, I'm good. And he's already gone number one on the Billboard charts like several times. It's really amazing. And I've tried very hard to get a hold of him, but he's a hard one to corner and get a hold of because I'd love to have him on the podcast. Him, Nova, and he's got another friend that works with him too. They got a whole following of people they call the Hangover Gang. And I mean, I could show you other songs by him that would absolutely blow your mind. It doesn't stop there. He got a bunch of these deep dive songs, but in this one, he's talking about the machine, the system, the thing that controls us, the algorithm, the things that they put in our minds, the fear that they use to control us and so forth. And, you know, we were talking today, a couple of guys that I work with, and we were having this conversation where it got into hypotheticals. And I'm like, I can just imagine that behind the scenes somewhere, there are people in the intelligence agencies that work with people in intelligence agencies in other countries and other people. And they've compromised themselves so much by making deals with one another. Mm-hmm. Well, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you. And so when someone comes along like a Trump or someone who would just put America first and screw all your deals and all those little IOUs that people that bought you off and paid for, when someone comes in and starts pushing the agenda that doesn't give a damn about your backroom deals and the things that you've done to compromise yourself, and your IOUs are getting ready to be worth squat. Yeah. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at. That's why they're fighting so hard to keep Trump out of it. It was Spygate, big deal. One of the biggest reasons why they don't want Trump to be elected again, because the things that they did to try to keep him out of office the first time are the things they're still trying to cover up. We know about the text messages. We were just talking about this with Sean Gresh between Peter Strzok and the rest of the guys talking about the insurance policy, where he says that POTUS wants to know everything we're doing. It was POTUS. It was Obama. So he knew and was quarterbacking what was going on behind the scenes. If Trump gets in there and they're afraid of retribution and they keep bringing up retribution as if it's something wrong with the retribution, if he's going after people who did this to him and who did it by the country, did it to the country by proxy, I hope he does. I hope it's retribution for a full 4 years. I hope that so many people in our deep state and in our government get perp walked. I hope.
Did you see that nice little twist of words when they asked him if he was going to go for retribution? And he said he was going to, the retribution will be success. You know, they're taking it as
Yeah, he said
he's just
success
gonna.
is his best retribution.
Yeah, so they're taking that as he's just gonna give them a walk on by, and he's not. He's going after
Mm-mm.
them. You
No,
know, he's
he's
gonna.
known for wanting vengeance. It's what he's known for. It's like he
Yeah,
gets with everybody who's not loyal to him. So
yeah,
Pompeo, all these guys that stabbed him in
Well,
the back after they thought he was, not the guy anymore. They
mhm.
got a lot of
I think
people.
he was really like middle of the road. The crazy thing to me is that he was like a moderate, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like his policies and like what he did, it seemed fairly moderate. That's the craziest
Mhm.
thing is like we have a lot of people in this MAGA the Make America Great Again movement that are far more radical. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy's policies are far more radical than Trump's. But for some reason, they still want to believe Trump is the threat. And I can't really, like, maybe it's because I don't know. I really can't tell you. I think it's just because he can't be bought and he just says things that they see him as like the biggest threat. But again, I'll say it. Vivek Ramaswamy's policies are far more radically right wing than Trump has ever been in any one of the fields. You can look at any of the policies, and Vivek Ramaswamy has clearly explained how he is going to be more libertarian and based. I mean, he wants to abolish a whole bunch of institutions that Trump has never came out and proclaimed. He's just came out and said that he wants to. Yeah, I mean, he said basic things like build a border wall. That was all the. I mean, every president ever had said that up until Biden, because for some reason it became unpopular, and somehow I got an argument today with a Native American who was dogging me for supporting white people or something because I said that I like America, and he's like, "Oh, the white people got to you." And I was like, "All right,
Okay.
yeah, yeah," but he was talking about like open borders and stuff, and I'm like, "Dude, okay, you have a reservation for your tribe, right? Then you're not pro open borders, right there. Clearly, if you have a reservation,
Yep.
there's an outline of where your land is, right? Of where your tribe's land is. The reservation is, I mean, it doesn't have actual closed borders, but like, okay, let's imagine we just move all of Chicago onto your reservation just for the fun of it. Let's see what happens. And I'm sure he'd be like, well, wait a minute. Maybe
Yeah.
we should like put up a wall, But I just always find that incredibly funny when,
But reservations would have fences if we could afford them.
yeah, well,
They can't
yeah,
afford them, But if they could, they'd
depending,
have a fence around the whole damn thing.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's why, like, it almost feels like natives should be inherently conservative,
Yeah,
but they're
they
not, and
should be,
I
but
can't
who knows what's going
exactly
on?
figure out why. It's like I know that a lot of my personal family, they kind of adopted the gangster culture. I lost a couple of uncles because they got
I
into
can't hear
drugs
anything.
and get. You can't hear anything. Uh-oh.
Reconnect.
Start over.
Yeah, I don't understand why it's having such a problem. I wonder if it's got something to do with that solar flare. All I know is right now I was talking to you, and my internet, not just it disconnected completely, like
Oh.
everything, and I have.
And are we still live,
fast.
or do we
Yeah, we're still
cut
live.
out?
We're very much live, but it's I'm on the internet all day here. I work from here a lot of times, and I don't have too many problems. But as soon as I go live, for some reason, like I said, it happens. It happens sometimes, and yeah, I'm not being conspiratorial, but I can see the traffic. It's bananas. But
Interesting.
I'm yeah, in it, so it wouldn't matter if it was hardwired or not. But you guys were talking about culture, right? So I mean, that's really what it boils down to. It's culture. It's culture. And when in the way that they try to keep us divided is they try to put color to culture. And when you try to put color to culture, what you do is you're turning people against one another, because if you say gangsta, if you say baby mama, if you say any of those things, you must be talking about black folks, right? It's not. It's not. I can tell you a million other people who that actually describes, and none of them are black. It's what they do to try to make us think one thing so that we don't call out what's wrong. And if I'm saying that the fatherless rate in the low income communities is the reason why crime is so rampant, that should be taken as, yes, that's right. We need to do something to change it. Not, so what are you better than us? And you know what I mean? The way that people react is if, you're not.
They'll take instant offense to it too, because they'll think it's because of their color or their race, because it's been built into them since they were little, that it's because of that.
So Sadio, I hope I'm saying that right, says, what's your thoughts on the conquest of Native Americans as a Native American?
So is he talking about like
the conquest? I don't.
America, like the creation of America, or is
Correct.
he talking about like?
Well, yeah, he's more or less talking about with the people that came here to the country and took it. That conquest, right? The smallpox blankets, all that. What I say to that is very simple. It's a blanket statement thing again, right? So there were plenty of people and plenty of people that moved here, started communities, villages that were offshoots, that were not part of the whole of Britain, that were coming here handing out smallpox blankets, that befriended many native tribes and actually hung people within their own community who did crimes against the native community. It was never there was never any blanket statement. It was never any blanket people like all the people who came here felt this way about Native Americans. It's not true. And nor was it all true that all Native Americans got along, because Native Americans in the different tribes were warring long before anyone else showed up. So I mean, it's a lot of issues.
What do you think, Frank? How do you feel about the foundation? Because I get this question quite frequently. Is they say, how can you be Native American and a patriot? How can you reconcile those two things?
Well, it's pretty simple. I just look inside, and my higher power tells me what is right and what is wrong. And what happened in the past happened in the past. There's nothing we can do to change it. Right. It is what it is. And that's just a saying, yes. But you know what? It's something that we live with every day. Either you grow up, you grow past it and become something better, or you're going to be stuck in your past forever. You'll never have a future because you're constantly worried about the past. And I'm an ex-alcoholic and an ex-drug addict. So when somebody tries to bring my past up to me, I tell them, look, it's in the past. And that's why it's there, because it's something I don't want to go back to. And unfortunately, what happened on this land happened throughout the world. We aren't exclusive to this type of action. So we can't be sitting there saying, hey, you know what, you did this to us, you did that to us. Nobody did anything to me. I'm sorry, but you didn't. It's like a black man trying to say, you owe me for slavery. No, I don't, because I never owned a slave. So there's nothing that you should be, there's nothing that is going to stop me from loving this country.
But we can be better now, though. We can be better now. We can love each other right now.
Yes,
we can make better choices right now
and make the better choices.
Because
I've always said that.
These questions, and I'm glad you're asking them, because it gives us a chance to respond to them. But these questions in themselves are usually questions used to divide people. And they're usually used in a way to draw people into a conflict. But the reality of it is that my brothers, whether they be black and native or Egyptian, it don't matter, right? If I need to make better choices now. We don't own slaves now. We don't. Nope. We're not involved in doing any of the things that we're talking about from back then. And like you said, There's not even one country on the face of this planet, not even one, that wasn't occupied by another nation at some point, that wasn't conquered, that wasn't occupied by another peoples. Not even one, not Egypt, none of them. Every one of them was conquered and was inhabited by other peoples at one time.
And the thing that I'm having problems with is they're trying to still do it to us today. They're trying to take our imagery away from us, from the sports teams, people that uphold us as a warrior group. They're trying to take that from us. They're trying to change the history, and that needs to stop. And if you can't stand with us, then you're obviously standing with those that want to eradicate us.
But okay, so Sadio says here, I don't think it's an issue of blame, but I think it's who's dominating. Sadio, I mean, brother, I don't think any of us want to dominate. We want our children to play outside in the streets and be safe. We want a prosperous country. If you look at most people's family portraits today, you'll see an eclectic bunch of people from all walks of life and backgrounds and skin tones. We don't really care too much about that anymore. But I think that thought process is what they use to try to keep us divided by saying they did something wrong and they owe you something. And
well, also let me point this out really quick too as well, because I was raised. Anglo-Saxons didn't like when I missed it. Anyway,
when the Vikings dominated, but I mean all those things in the past.
Yeah, so my dad is native, my mother is white, so I'm a half breed, as they call it, right? And so that gave me kind of a different worldview, and I've kind of I have experienced some kinds of racism throughout my life, but they're not like detrimental. That I don't ever like hold them against people, because I've experienced racism from like this 90-year-old lady one time. It was the cutest thing ever. I mean, like she was clearly being racist, but she was also kind of pissed. Huh? Yeah. I mean,
cute racism.
Yeah. So
you got to tell me how racism can be cute, man.
All right. She was like 90 years old, and she came into our shop, and she wanted to use her account that she hadn't used for like 11 years. So I was like, "Oh, ma'am, I gotta, rerun your credit score in order to see if if you're still allowed to use this account." And she's like, "But I've had this account for 20 years." So I'm like, "I know, but you haven't used it for a long time. Like, we have to do it. I don't know what to tell you." And she got really upset at me. But then at the end, she was like, "Yeah, in plain English." And I was like, back then I had I looked Mexican. So, but she was like, "Yeah, in plain English." And I was like, "I'm sorry, is my Native American accent like too thick for you or something?" But,
you should have said K.
But I mean, to me, like that was a bit of anger that she just kind of expressed in a poor way. And I mean, she's an old lady. It's like she grew up like 40 years of her, or 20 years of her life, however much was like before the civil rights movement. Like, she's still talking to me, so I don't really care.
This next little bit
that was cute. Yeah.
This next little bit for everyone's just the other social platforms that we're streaming to, just so you understand. What I'm doing right now is for education purpose only, and it's just a setup so people understand the premise of what I'm going to say following. If you were to call me a cracker, or if you were to call me a honky or white bread, or any of the names that supposedly, are supposed to offend and whatnot like that, I wouldn't get offended. And if used properly in the right joke, they might even be funny to me. We look at offense as a sin as Christians, right? You ever heard it said the sin of offense? I can only offend you if I find a sore spot. So if you already believe you're less than, and everyone thinks that's boogeyman out there in the ether thinks a specific thing about you, and as a result you think it about you, and then so when someone picks at it, you're pissed off and you're ready to, that needs to be healed, right? And I'm not saying that the people who use those names or call people racist epithets and things like that, like, they're not wrong. I'm not defending that whatsoever. But the idea that we need to react the way that we do when we encounter assholes, I mean, for lack of a better term, That's what needs to change, because that act is a cyclical one. Because when you hurt one of mine, I hurt one of yours, and you hurt one of mine, and I hurt one of yours, and it's forever and ever and ever and ever. And this is why Jesus said, "Turn the other cheek." Right? It was an act of like, I guess it's very hard. You have to be extremely strong to return love for hate. When someone puts hate on you, you have to be an extremely strong person to turn around and love that person or pray for that person. So, and it's a weak person will react by wanting to fight, and you can be controlled. If I know all I have to do is say this to you and I'll make you do something, do you want someone to have that kind of
react
control over you?
emotionally? I think it was Bruce Lee who said that if somebody controls your emotions, they control your mind. Something along those lines. I'm kind of summing it up, but I mean, he was absolutely spot on with that. And that if you react to everything emotionally, you will be able to be controlled easily by people who are great at manipulating emotions. I mean, look at Facebook. Back in, I think it was 2012, they got caught running social experiments to make people depressed on the Facebook users. That's why I don't have a Facebook or a Meta. Like, I personally don't, or Instagram, right? Because I don't want to work or associate with a company that ran social experiments on its users. And I know to like some extent advertising does that everywhere. Like when you have like personalized ads, they're not running experiments on you, but I guess that's a little bit different. I was just going to go off on a different tangent, but I really don't want to associate with companies that socially experiment on you, because I know that I try to be actively aware of when companies are doing this. Man, propaganda strong. And I mean, these things that they run on you, I mean, they want a reaction from you, because you'll see videos or you'll see comments. I mean, I still kind of see it on X, with people that have the rage bait and stuff. And I have the impulse to respond, but I don't like to. I'll screenshot it.
The ones that get me are the kids. They're fighting, the ganging up on one in the racial, the ones that they do intentionally, trying to race bait you into feeling a certain way. So you see the little white kid in the bathroom for no reason get beat up by 3 black bullies, and what they're trying to do is make you respond by going after the race instead of the individual.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you do respond, no matter how you respond, they twist your intention, because that's what the left does, right? It's thought police. I can say anything I want to say about something, and I could be right. But what the left does is act like I'm saying it from a place of hate, or my intention in saying it was something altogether different than what I was thinking. And,
if you're trying to actively think through something, and you're starting to notice a pattern, or every human has pattern recognition. That's one of the best ways that we've like advanced as a species, is recognizing patterns and being able to counteract it. So, and as a defense mechanism, when you start recognizing patterns, I mean, the problem with something like X or something like Facebook, just social media in general, is that these patterns, from what I've seen with emotionally sensitive people, the ones that emotionally respond, is like, they'll see these police brutality videos over and over and over again. And it'll be like, 10 videos over the last 10 years or 15 years that are just kind of recycled through, but they'll see all these videos and then they'll think that like, oh, all police are bad. So, ACAB. So all cops are bastards, right? In the light version. So, and then it kind of starts this emotional cycle that it's just used against them, because they can't fathom, they don't understand that there's 300 million interactions between police and civilians each year. I mean, 300 million interactions, there's bound to be some bad ones. Like, just statistically, that's going to happen. And some are unjust, and sometimes the police get caught. Like, I mean, even if you look at the
less than 1% of the time, though.
Yeah, well, yeah. But even if you look at the biggest case, that, George Floyd, do you know how many accusations accusations of racism there were in that entire trial, throughout the entire trial.
Mm-hmm. But they were using it to control
zero
people.
accusations. The media was. In the trial, they never accused Derek Chauvin of being racist, and that was his intentions. But somehow the media used that narrative to say that this is a systemic problem in America, and that all cops hate black people, and blah blah blah, and this and that. The media used that against people, and it riled everybody up. So I don't know. I try to.
We need to treat police officers
I'm
with
not
a little
perfect
bit
against it, but
we need to start treating police officers with the respect that they deserve. When a police officer approaches your car and tells you, "Hey, give me your license and registration," that's exactly what you do, without hesitation, without an ignorant mouth on you, without you can't do this to me. What do you want? All that other stuff that happens that usually makes the encounter go bad. You could have did without any of that. I mean, listen, we're going to have a police officer on the show 1 month from now, literally 1 month or so from right now. And this is the cop who ended up, who shot the guy on the strip that was running around with the machine gun during the George Floyd BLM situation. And there was only one. And he's going to come on, and we're going to go over some of the things that happened to him during that time. And if people were coming to his house, how did he get his address? Right. So there's a lot of stuff there. There's evil people in the ether, and the people you would think that have your best interest at heart, they all don't. Not the media, not even some of the people that you work with, because I don't believe that some of these people would actually know where this guy lives just because they know where he lives. No, it's more than that. But listen, he just said it. If you take into account the fact that the people in impoverished communities commit more crime, well, of course, they're poorer. So as a result, more crime happens. So they're going to have more police encounters where there are more crime. And because that population, and we talked about this before, black people are 13% of the population, right? So if you say, well, not all black people are bad, that goes without saying. They're not a monolithic community. So let's say 3 or 4% of 13 are the ones committing those crimes. They're responsible for something like half or more of all of the crime in the United States. It's nuts. The number should astound even the most conservative or liberal person, to say that 3% of the population, or 3% of our total population, has committed crime, that much crime, but only coming from 3%. And then when you take a look at the trans community, and you look at how many mass shootings over the last 2 years were committed by people
YouTube,
from
man.
that
You're about to get banned.
But it's true.
YouTube.
But it's true.
I know,
I'm using numbers. I'm using numbers.
I'm telling you. You're streaming
It's
to
just a lot.
YouTube.
It's enough to be alarming. It's enough to be alarming. It's enough to at least warrant the conversation to how can we fix this? If someone told me that my community of people that wore camo hoodies just by happenstance is responsible for every, whatever theft or whatever, I would start looking at my community. I would like, whoa, what's going on here? Not get defensive. I'm going to police my own. I'm going to say, okay, we can do better. People with camo hoodies need to do better. And that's what they need to do. It's that simple. I think that everybody just wants to get along and live in the same communities and the same country and want us all to be prosperous. But we can't do that if one side of the country thinks the other side of the country is out to get them. And that needs to stop.
It does. Yep. We are one nation under God, and we all need to live like that. Well, guys, I hate to cut us short, but I need to get off.
You're good. Let me close this out.
Going long. We're going long. So you're right. Good job.
Yeah. No, let me
close to keep you longer than we needed.
Yeah. Let me close this out, and I'm going to say something to you before we get out of here. So guys, let me tell you this, as usual, the silent majority need to stop being silent and stand your ground. We'll see you next time on the Patriots Prayer.
My people of this country, and we're under attack. They banning us, they cancel us for speaking the facts. If you man enough, come stand with us, take USA back. And every time we pull up, all you're gonna see is America.